This is a Founding Media podcast.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Great Society. I'm your host, Constance Dykhuizen. I'm here today with Zane and Amal Wilemon from Ubuntu Life. I'm really excited to talk to you today because, Zane, you're somebody I'd known in the nonprofit space for a long time, but you've taken a nonprofit and moved kind of into the nonprofit business world.
Correct.
So I want to hear about that. Can you take me back to when you first started your nonprofit?
Well, I first started all this, I guess it was 18 years ago.
Wow.
Dating myself. But yeah, I was finishing university and trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I was asking myself three questions. One was, what do I believe in? I'd heard a lot about God and grew up in Texas in the Bible Belt, but I was like, okay, these are different belief systems that I've inherited, but who am I and what do I believe in? The second was, I'd always said I wanted to help people. So I was supposed to go to medical school. And the reason I had been telling people why I was going to go to medical school is because I want to help people, but I had never actually helped anybody. And so the second question was, what would it feel like to help people and just focus on that? And would I enjoy it, or am I full of shit? I don't actually really like to help people. And then the third question, which came out kind of nowhere, was who would I be if you dropped me in the middle of nowhere? Like, am I who I am because of my family's expectations, of societal expectations, of friends' expectations, or am I intrinsically living this person that I am? And if you drop me in the middle of Africa, would I keep being that person? So
That's a scary question.
It is a scary question
like, to ask and to try to
well,
answer.
it is. If you're given full freedom to just be, your ideal self, like, what would that be like? If you removed all expectations? And so those three questions were rattling around in my head my senior year of college. And I decided I'm going to go figure it out. I had no intention of starting a nonprofit. I had no interest in ever going to Africa. It just ended up being Africa, and specifically to Kenya. And while I was there, I met Myrriah, who was running an orphanage of 140 kids. He was also a local pastor in one of the local churches, married and had 3 kids of his own. He was earning $50 a month. And we just struck a relationship, and he really introduced me to Kenya. He introduced me to what it's like to grow up in poverty. He got his first pair of shoes when he was 15 years old, and had just a really, crazy childhood story. And so these two unlikely guys, I grew up in middle-class Texas, Myrriah grew up poverty in Kenya, became really good friends. And we would have lunch every Thursday, and we did that for over a year. And those conversations led to us starting a nonprofit.
And that was Come for the Children, right?
Yeah. We've gone through a few different brand changes.
Yeah. We all do that personally and with our organizations. So what did you do in the beginning? Like, what kind of needs did you want to meet, or what did you see as a need? Or
it was, it was interesting because it's all been very organic. The nonprofit space, there was no social enterprise. There was no such thing as a social entrepreneur 18 years ago. I mean, people were doing that, but no, there was not that title. And so I didn't have this idea. I was still figuring those questions out. And Myrriah was figuring out what he was going to do with his life too. He actually got a scholarship to come to the States to get a bachelor's degree. And so both of us were just kind of like, okay, well, the immediate need, or let me step one step back. Our lunches, the theme that kept coming to the surface around our lunches about trying to do something in Kenya together was that the people in this community are just as eager and hungry to take ownership and change their lives. They just lack the opportunity to be empowered to do something about it. So those two words, opportunity and empowerment, we kept coming back to. And so then it became, okay, we know people need to be empowered. We can do that groundwork relationally. We had already been doing that for each other. So what are going to be the opportunities that we'll create? So we started at the orphanage because that's where Myrriah was, and we started with a trade school. So they had computers and sewing machines donated to this orphanage, but they didn't have a facility for it. So that was step one. We ended up building. We brought a team of 9 people over. We were there for 2 months. We lived at the orphanage. There's no running water. There was no electricity. We did bucket showers. It was hilarious. But that was step one. And then step 2 was we went back the next year. We started visiting the homes of some of these kids because some of the kids started coming from outside the community, not just in the orphanage. And then that's
have you always worked in the Masai Mara area?
It's just west or just east of the Masai Mara. It's in a town called Myrriah.
Okay.
But it's on the route to the Masai Mara. And so one of the things that early on that we identified was one of the areas where development goes wrong is that people develop a model and they take that model and they go a mile wide to replicate it and they try to do it in a Western style, like let's build our numbers and let's build the schools, let's build the hospitals, whatever that model is, and let's go as far wide as we can. The repercussion of that is you only go an inch deep. And so you don't establish relationships of trust with the local community. Things start to break down. You have issues with administration at the school or the hospital, and then finances become an issue because you never took the time to slow down and go deep. And so we said, whatever we're going to do, we're going to go a mile deep and an inch wide. So we're going to stay committed to these communities and learn with the little money that we had. And if this thing starts to work and we start to get more money, then we can think about going 2 inches wide, 3 inches wide. But we're always going to stay really committed to Kenya and specifically this community until the demand takes us outside the community. And so that's how we went. We started with the trade school. Then we started working in healthcare because we had some doctors back here who wanted to get involved, and it was an immediate issue at the orphanage and at the school were just health-related issues. And then we got connected to special needs kids and about 4 years after we started everything. And that became it. We're like, okay, we're going to this is an insanely underserved community, probably the most forgotten community. If you go anywhere in Africa or in the developing countries, like people with special needs they're seen as outcasts. There's a lot of religious stigma around them, especially the women who birth them. They're seen as committing some horrific sin, and so God's punishing them. And that's why they gave birth to this child. The husband typically blames the wife. And so this was all this insane learning experience for myself and for Jeremiah. But then it hit on these issues like, do I like to help people? Who is God? What do I believe about God? And who the hell am I? And those questions started to get answered just as I started to connect with this community, in particular, the special needs community. And so that's how Comfort the Children started. Then we kind of started rebranding to CTC. Then the mothers of those special needs kiddos came to us about a year into running the school, and they said, we'd like to have a job now that you're taking care of our kids 5 days a week. I was like, that's amazing, because I was also really tired of raising money. And I was
Perfect.
and I was like, maybe we could create some way where you could earn a living, and that will free us up of the full burden of raising money, but also give these women something constructive to do. Again, an opportunity to be empowered. And they said they wanted to sew. I was like, fantastic. Yeah, I was like, fantastic.
Which you were an expert at, of course.
I'm an expert, seamstress. No, but I was like, perfect. Like, who knows how to sew? And none of the women knew how to sew, but they loved the idea of learning how to sew. And so, crazy story, which is Ubuntu is full of them, like right place, right time. We got partnered with this group called the American Sewing Guild. They sound like
they know how to sew.
They definitely know how to sew.
Yeah.
And they led 3 teams in a row. They taught our original 9 moms how to sew. We had treadle, Singer sewing machines, and the women would start in like this one area of the room, and they would end up on the other end of the room because they didn't know how to sew, and so they're like moving this machine along.
Amazing.
Yeah. And but then it was like, wow, this is so cool. It's giving them this sense of purpose. They're building connections amongst themselves. We were making just a tiny bit of money, but even for a nonprofit earning any money, I mean, most of it's all donations. And so that became kind of a light bulb moment for me. If we could tap into a larger marketplace you know, what could we really do on a larger scale? And that's when, you know, we partnered with Whole Foods Market, and that became our first big account, and that changed everything.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So as that process was kind of starting up and you're starting to maybe transition more into income and things like that, did your relationship with your donors change, or how did you manage that, kind of keeping them still engaged, but saying, hey, we're earning money now, but did you still need their money? Or
we definitely did, and we still do.
Okay. Okay.
If you're tuning in as a donor, please continue. But it was, you know, as a nonprofit, you're continually growing, and, you know, the process of learning how to make product takes time, takes a lot of money. So even though we were making money, we were burning a lot more money too. We're building new buildings; those cost money. But it was confusing to donors in the beginning because, and even sometimes to this day,
even now a little bit.
Yeah, because people are like, we don't brand ourselves as a nonprofit. You know, most nonprofits, it looks and feels and tastes like a nonprofit.
Yeah.
And we've worked really hard on, we went from CTC to Ubuntu to look and feel more like a business, and have that brand. And so, you know, educating our donors to come along for the journey was instrumental. And, you know, now, you know, we're a 50% earned revenue.
That's awesome.
Nonprofit.
That's
and so 50% donations. And so it's great for our donors. And now it's more of a marketing tool and an advantage to us. And we speak to donors because for every dollar that they donate, we make $1.
That's great.
As opposed to that dollar just going and burning straight into operations.
That's awesome. So Amal, can you talk to me a little bit about how you came on, what made you believe in the mission and what was going on and your role at Ubuntu?
I think for me, it was, you know, the first time I went to Kenya, of course, you know, you fall in love with it, and it's an incredibly special place, and the spirits of Kenyans, and especially our maker moms, is pretty powerful. The second trip was, I think, when I kind of broke wide open. The relationship that I started feeling with the moms was that my word meant something to them, and they were relying on me, and that was the shift, and that was the change. And then I came back, and, you know, my background was in fashion and event production, fashion production, and have a large network. And I was like, you know, I can channel all of this into my future and my family. And so when we got married, talked to Zane about it, a little cautious. How are you
working together?
I was reluctant too, you know. I have like a family background where it's like, you do your thing. You know,
Keep it separate. Okay.
I come from opposite.
Yeah, Pakistani family where it's like all twined.
Keep it all
like
together.
24/7. Fall asleep together if you can.
Yeah, and it was a challenge. I mean, it was a challenge in all the right ways. It was just like we love spending time together, and I loved that she was fired up about Ubuntu as opposed to just being my thing and my story with Jeremiah and the moms and the kiddos. And I was like, okay, how does this become, like, she wanted to, like, there was a definite gap in Ubuntu on the product side.
Yeah.
You know,
and it didn't hurt that a
elevating.
professional background sounds to be totally relevant.
Totally.
And has helped you move into where you're going.
Yeah.
And that was a big shift too. It's just like seeing, you know, Whole Foods, wonderful, incredible, you know, partner. It's like we can take this further. You know, we have dog collars and free people now, and
That's awesome.
you know, local. You know, they're sold at by George now, Sunroom, and so it's like, bring it on.
Yeah.
You know, let's take this even further, one step further.
That was one of my questions, is how do you think about product development? And does it change for a nonprofit business? Like, can you just do you go to the market and see what people want? Do you go to your makers and see what they can make? Like, how do you develop a product?
Yeah, you know, it's amazing now that the moms are making shoes. It's almost like they can make anything. You know, started with a coffee sleeve, and now they're making, you know, espadrilles, which is pretty phenomenal. But I think it's a little bit of both. You know, the Maasai, the beading is so beautiful and so particular to Kenya. And so we do a lot of hand beading and We use majority, as much as we can, I think, East African,
Source
Kenyan
as locally as we can.
materials. And we have an incredible design team in Kenya. So
That's beautiful. And so tell me about what you brought me today. I'm very excited about this. We have Ubuntu branded chocolate now.
Yes.
So tell me how that happened.
So this is an example of like what we do, really well, which is, definitely, I think it's just intuitive to Jeremiah and me to want to, like, we know our lives are bound to another, and so we're always looking at, just intuitively, like, how can this be a win-win opportunity, whether it's with the kiddos or the moms or also potentially business partners. So Gudio is a chocolate brand out of Helsinki, and I got connected with these guys, and they were like, hey, we've done environmental sustainability within our company, but we've never done social give back. We love what Ubuntu is about. We'd love to do something with you guys. And I was like, cool. We're happy to take a donation, but maybe there's a way we could actually do something brand wise, like in a product. And they're like, oh gosh, what ideas do you have? And I was like, well, do you have a coffee chocolate? And they're like, yeah, it doesn't sell out well, but we do have a coffee chocolate. And I said, well, we have a coffee, with Whole Foods called Cafe Ubuntu. Would you be up to like check it out, make a batch of chocolate, see how it tastes? And they're like, dude, that'd be amazing. And I was like, that'd be cool because you're buying coffee from us. And then we could work on a project that you could make donations of every bar that's sold. And I can try to get you guys into Whole Foods. And we're like, dude, that's a win.
Yeah.
And so it happened. Yeah, so like if you look on it, I'm going to open up your chocolate.
Okay. Don't eat it though. It's mine.
This is still sealed. So, but then on the inside, it says, whether it's £1, €1, or $1, 50 cents goes to empower women and serve children with special needs in Myrriah, Kenya. And then it has some stats, and then it actually has an image of the cafe.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
In Kenya.
Yeah.
And so it's been a really like a win-win-win. It's a win for our partners at Whole Foods. It's a win for us. It's a win for Gudio. And obviously it's a win for the moms and the kiddos. And it tastes great.
Yeah. So it seems like we're at that moment where so many brands are kind of looking for relevance in the social impact space.
Yeah.
So like it seems like you're able to offer that to brands. Do you have any advice on how to leverage those relationships with brands or in the fashion industry perhaps?
I think authenticity pops in my mind at front, because there is this rush to do good. And so there's a lot of smoke and mirrors about what kind of good are you really doing. I talk about like a transparent good or a sustainable good. And then the other is, I think for the nonprofits, we typically, just by nature, and I was this way too in the beginning, typically win-lose, like donate, versus win-win. How can you creatively think about a way that this can be mutually beneficial? And because that then you get momentum through something that's mutually beneficial.
How is your relationship with I would call them clients, I'm not sure. I know you say maker moms too.
Yeah.
But how has your relationship with them changed when it goes from like offering their kids daycare, or maybe, I don't know if you ever provided them with like direct monetary assistance, but like from them now being your employees or being co-creators of your brand, like how has that relationship shifted?
family to team.
Yeah. You want to speak on that?
Go for it.
Okay. We were just talking about this on the way over that, a typical, like a smaller nonprofit, you run like a family. It's all built on love. You bleed the mission. You're very passionately serving one another. But then as you start to integrate business, you need business and, efficiencies and effectiveness and responsibilities and accountability. And so what we did is we slowed down. And it was a difficult few years for Ubuntu because that meant our sales were slowing down. But the idea was slow down so that you can go faster. And so we slowed down. We did a lot of culture work. We spent a ton of time, with the moms. We did retreats with our Kenya team. We read books together on, just building a team, or also other businesses that we respect and admire, like Patagonia or Whole Foods with conscious capitalism. We read Shoe Dog, about the founding of Nike as we were doing shoes. Yeah. And all this gave us, language about how to scale. And so that transition from being a family where you're born into a family, and even if you suck as a family member, you're still family, right? But like if you transition then to a corporation, then it's all about the bottom line, and it's like hit your numbers or you're gone. So we are more in this like in between space, not a corporation, not a family. What are we? And it's like we're a team, and if you step onto a soccer field and I pass the ball over to the position you're supposed to be in and you're not there, it's like, okay, there's a level of accountability and responsibility you have to be in that position. And so that was really helpful for our family to make that transition, because everybody understands that need to be a team. And there's still that love. So what I say now is we have, as a nonprofit business, we're the heart of a nonprofit and compassionate, but then we're the mind and muscle of a business.
Are there some people that like you couldn't work with anymore or didn't want to transition into that way? Because I've had that happen to me, and it's always really hard to have to stop working with people.
Completely.
So yeah.
Yeah, and what I encourage other nonprofits, listening is like, set your KPIs, your key performance indicators, create a format of quarterly check-ins, have your team be a part of the process of forming your budget for the year, have them understand their numbers, their costs, the burn rate, what those expectations of what they're supposed to be bringing in every quarter, and check in with them. And if you're doing that and you have these regular check-ins, you have this infrastructure, if someone's not the right fit, they will walk themselves to the door.
Yeah.
You don't really have to fire anyone. They fire themselves. And then it's apparent to your team that person needs to go.
Yeah.
So like when we had to let some of our moms go, some of our maker moms go, the other maker moms were like, please get them out of here.
It was a team. It was a team decision.
Yeah. And it helps everybody. It's this level. It's it's level playing field. It's like we're all practicing together. We all see who is not showing up. So it's up to the leadership to set a structure in place that we get into a flow, and you easily recognize when someone's not in that flow.
One of my favorite Instagram moments of the last year was when y'all brought your Maasai Maker moms to Austin for the Austin City Limits Music Festival.
That was my high of 18 for sure.
Can you tell me a little bit about how I guess how they perceived Austin, and maybe what you learned about Austin from bringing them here?
Oh man,
go back and forth on that one. What do you
think? I mean, I think their biggest takeaway was how kind everyone was and receiving of them. I mean, we would be stopped at HEB and, no one would take pictures, but they wanted to just come and hug them and say hi. And
where are you from?
That was
Texas style.
I love it.
Yeah. Where are you from?
And that was beautiful. And the other thing that they noticed was that older people, the biggest takeaway for them was that older people really enjoy themselves here, which they loved.
But, we're out. We took them to like Broken Spoke, and just seeing all these older people out there dancing and two-stepping, and it was like
they got on the dance floor.
Did they do the jumping, or did they two-step?
They two-step.
They had cowboys come up and dance with them.
That's adorable.
Was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were definitely the first Maasai ever at Broken Spoke.
You think so? Yeah.
Another thing that was interesting, I mean, we know this about ourselves, but the first thing that they noticed is that everybody is in a hurry to go somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Everyone looks very busy.
Yeah.
And that was something that you and I really talked about that and have been really intentional about, chilling out on the phone. And we have pretty good rules about that already, but not have that sense of urgency. And that was really cool because, we live it every day. We're in it. And they were the appreciation, it's like looking at life through like a kid's lens. And it was very much that. And it was beautiful.
It was funny, like the shit talking from the first night, like, you go to Kenya or Thailand, you go to these foreign countries and you have like a host family and it's like they put food on the table and you're like, oh my God, what part of the animal is that? Or like,
and then they come here and they're like, "What is that?"
Yeah,
and you're like, "It's a taco."
We took them to Maddie's, and we got
queso,
chips. We got chips and salsa, queso, and guac. And they're like, this one of the Maasai ladies, Jacqueline. She's like, picks up the chip and like I'm showing her how to dip it. And she's like, well, at first Jacqueline was like, what the hell is this? And I go, absolutely not. Like, I don't like goat. I go to y'all's place and I have to eat goat. I was like, you're damn eating Tex-Mex. You're going to like it.
That's so funny. And they crushed chocolate milk.
They crushed chocolate milk.
They did find some favorites.
They had never had
and guacamole.
That's good.
They ended up.
Yeah. Some things are universal. I've had good guacamole in Kenya. There you go.
That was
And one of the things, I mean, I know this about the Maasai, but one of the most amazing moments for me was just this playful time where it was like no longer are we a company, no longer are we the boss, and there are maker moms. It was just like we were all kids. We stayed at my dad's house out in Westlake, and it was just bigger for everybody. My dad was out of town, and we all stayed in the same house together. It was like 7 of us for 3 weeks or for a month.
Oh, that's a long time.
Oh, the respect I had for any
For
parents.
families making breakfast. We were up early making breakfast for everybody.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And these maker
It was
moms can
incredible.
throw down some food.
Barbecue.
But yeah, we took them to County Line and did the whole barbecue.
They were loving it.
County Line took us into the back pit and like showed the whole roasting process. Wow. It was like, it was.
They're going to open one. You're going to get there in Kenya and they're going to be like having their pits open. And
But the moment for me, it was like this playful. It was a nice day, and they wanted to get in the pool. And I was like, sure, get in the pool. And they were worried about their hair. And so we didn't have like any hair nets or anything. So Amal did saran wrap on their heads. and they get into the water, and they're like freaking out. And I'm like, I don't know. And then they explained to us, they use, I know water is scarce there, but I didn't realize just to the degree. They use 3 liters on average of water to bathe per person a week.
wow.
And I was like, oh my God, no wonder you're taking 30-minute showers every day when you're in Texas. And then they had never felt water like immersed.
Wow.
So like when they first got into the pool, you can imagine me, Nancy is like 70 years old, our lead beater, and seeing, just them immerse themselves in water and what that must feel like.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Is insane.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And then Beatrice took like 45-minute showers every day, which was pretty
Every
amazing.
day.
Go Beatrice.
Yeah,
I know.
Beatrice.
Own it.
Her inner diva came out for sure.
Yeah.
So for people listening that maybe were like you when you were an undergrad, like asking these questions, wanting to do big things, what advice would you give them? Maybe they want to do something far away, maybe they want to do something locally, but do you have any advice for people looking to get involved in a nonprofit business or in the social justice space?
You want to go first, and I'll...
Yeah, I would just say for me, this is all relatively new, but let's listen. That trip in Kenya, there was so much happening inside of me, and, the fear of leaving a career that I've had for, 10 plus years and working with my husband, it was all, it's real. I'm so thankful I did. Take the time to listen.
I think listen's huge. That'd be my number 1 too. We so often, because we're so fast paced, we jump in. For me, that first year that I lived in Africa and lived in Kenya, this was before cell phones. This is before social media, before blogs. I just got a Hotmail account like right before I went. And so when I was there, I was forced to listen. And so I would say listen is key, of like what really resonates with you, like asking those questions. And then I would say experiment after you've listened, like try some things, like go before you think about taking on your own thing, which is really difficult. Like go join up with somebody or a few people who are doing something that interests you and get a taste for that. Because I definitely did that, and that was huge. Like just being in Africa, being in Kenya. And then the third, which I did not do well, and I'm doing much better now, is focus. So I say listen, experiment, and check things out, and then focus. Like if you can do one thing really well, you'll be light years ahead of other people.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so this is my last question, and I ask everybody this. How do you define success for yourself or for Ubuntu Life? Like, how do you evaluate or measure? Is it product? Is it how many maker mums you're able to hire? Is it a feeling? Is it more esoteric? Like, how do you define success?
All of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like all of it.
Yeah.
As a social business, a nonprofit business, like you're constantly looking at, your burn rate, how much income revenue you're bringing in. At the same time, you're looking at impact metrics for your kids. You're looking at how people just are enjoying, the culture of the company. So I think you're always weighing those. But when you're saying that, the one word that popped in my head, which I think is kind of in this space, especially if you're committed to good, if you're not having fun, you're not successful.
How so?
I just think this is like the work of helping people, and especially like loving one another to do a good for the world.
Yeah. You gotta love what you do.
Yeah, if you're not having fun more times than not, I mean, like, believe me, Ubuntu has sucked on days and weeks, and even we've had years where it's been really, really hard. But when I show up with the Maker Moms, when I'm having a Tusker beer with Jeremiah back in Kenya, when I'm brainstorming with Amal about, products we're going to release, like, that's all really fun. Like, we're always having fun. We're creating, we're loving one another. And it's like, that to me is like the ultimate success.
I really like that. And I appreciate your approach, and I appreciate all that you've done with your products and with that message. So thanks very much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. And thank you for the chocolate. Everybody go get your Cafe Ubuntu chocolate.
Yeah. And as a vegetarian, it's vegan.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks very much. Anyway, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
See ya.